Ladies and gentlemen, the following is another exciting episode of the Wrestling Fans Podcast, Ringside Society. In one corner, we have the Monarch of Mardi Gras, the Baroness of Bourbon Street. She's also the newly crowned Destroyer of Dinners. Soraya, we apologize. It was her. I always get his name mixed up. And when she's not co-hosting Ringside Society, she's on crazy misadventures such as shopping for DeLoreans, looking for the fabled Cobra Kai dojo, and picking fights with people, all the while dressed up as one of the Road Warriors. Louisiana's own Kathy Knight. In the second corner, we have the greatest thing on God's green earth. No, we're not talking about money, Mary Jane, or Popeye spinach. He is the Tranquil Dart of Ringside Society and Delaware's greatest American hero. He is Rob Bass, and you are not. And the last corner we have Boston, straight up Boston, flight catching, shot glass snatching, always on the go, catch him if you can, said his name in Guyana, now they love him in Japan. No cap, the worldwide star boy, Remy Blue. And our guest for tonight, our guest of honor tonight is a man who is not only the Texas Tiger Shark, he is also the innovator of Intellect. And not only that, he is the general manager of Renegade Wrestling Revolution out there in Texas. And May 22nd, you will be seeing a second Rise of the Vixens. Everybody, welcome to the show, Houston, Texas's own Jacob King. Jacob, how you doing tonight, man?
Woo! I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you very much for actually, giving this opportunity to interview you. You know, we know you're a busy man. You're busy planning for May 22nd. A lot going down. It's about to be a lit show, more lit than 420 last month. I don't smoke, people, but I got an idea of how it is. But yeah, man, even Kathy was like, I'm going back to wrestling shows. And the first show I'm going back to is RWR in Texas.
Yes.
So we were like,
yeah, you
so
couldn't
we were
have
like
picked a better show to come back to for your first one back. Like the amount of work we've put into this show, the amount of money and time and effort that we have put into making sure that this is the biggest independent wrestling event in Texas this year. I really can't put it into words. It has been an experience, to say the least.
Honestly speaking, Jacob, I'm actually jealous of Kathy. I'm all the way over here in North Carolina, and I wish I was in Texas right now. I've been to Texas before, had a lot of great times, lots of great food, but I really wish I could see that show right now. But Kathy will be there for us in spirit. We just know, and she'll definitely make her presence known there as well too. But Kathy, no more hijinks, okay? Stop letting people kick you in the shins, slap, give you chops, and all that. We don't have health insurance here at Ringside Society, so you can't be doing all these crazy things, man. Gosh.
No promises.
Well, I don't know how much of that is Kathy's fault and how much of it is just Roxy, because Roxy will go rogue at a minute's notice. Like, we can't control her. She's like she's small, but she's also feisty. So we've got that going for us.
Yeah, I could imagine. So, Jacob, I just got to ask, what can we expect to see on May 22nd, the second Rise of the Vixens? What are fans going to be in for, man?
Well, they're in for a crazy show. We've got a grand total of 10 stacked matches for that card. I've made the executive decision to open the night with Nyla Rose, Super Oprah, and Joe Alonzo. Because I feel like if you're going to start off an event, you might as well start off with a murder. And I feel like that's a good way to get the crowd invested. I'm actually thinking of starting a GoFundMe for Joe Alonzo's funeral, because I know that's how that's going to end. The poor kid does not know what he's gotten himself into. I don't know if you've seen the video that Nyla Rose just dropped, talking about how much of a mistake Joe Alonzo made, but I can tell he's in for a fight. And the fact that Super Oprah is there too, who I think has caused us more headaches with regards to losing security deposits than any other performer we've had at an RWR event. She's broken rings, she's broken chairs, she's broke anything that can be broken. Super Oprah has broken, and the next thing that's going to be broken is probably going to be Joe Alonzo. And the rest of the card is just as amazing. I'm personally looking forward to our main event. Rachel Rose is taking on Amber Rodriguez. That feud has been simmering since about September of last year. Kathy's got her Rachel Rose shirt on. I'm a big Rachel Rose fan, have been for a very long time. The thing about Rachel is that she is one of the most talented people I've ever met. She makes some questionable decisions sometimes, such as kicking me in the face for no good reason, but she also is just, there's a reason she's the face of RWR, and that's because, during the pandemic and during the COVID times, there were certain people who stepped up to the plate to represent our company and to really make sure that, no matter how bad things got out there, our company still stayed alive. And Rachel is the reason that we're still here, because she puts in that work. And I can tell you, whenever she showed up on AEW Dark last week, everybody from backstage at RWR, we watched that match with tears in our eyes. We could not be more proud of Rachel. And so this matchup means a lot to us and to Rachel as well, because Amber Rodriguez is not what we consider to be one of the RWR inner circle. She is much more integrated in the Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Gulf Coast scene. She's coming in from outside of Texas. She's not a Texas wrestler. She's not a Houston wrestler. And RWR, whenever we came back with RWR Reloaded back in March, I took time to address the audience before we came out for that show. And I said, my main goal operating that company, running this company, is to bring back the greatness that is Texas wrestling, because Texas has a long and storied wrestling tradition. Whenever you think of wrestling, a lot of times you're thinking of Texas wrestlers. You're thinking of Eddie Guerrero. You're thinking of the Von Erich family. You're thinking of Terry Funk, Steve Austin, all of these amazing Texas wrestlers who have built this legacy. And I want RWR to carry on that legacy. So Rachel knows that she is defending the honor of not just the Vixens title, but of Texas wrestling and Houston wrestling and RWR. So I really want to see what happens whenever she finally goes one-on-one with Amber Rodriguez, because Amber is a very, very talented in-ring performer. And Rachel has gotten so much better over the last year that I really can't wait to see what those two do in the ring.
Rachel Rose has definitely come a long way. We actually had the pleasure of having her on our show on our first season when she was actually a referee for Reality of Wrestling, and she has definitely come a long way. And like Ryan Romano just said, shout out to Ryan Romano. He just said that she soon will be All Elite, and yeah, I definitely believe it'll happen soon. It's only a matter of time. But speaking of All Elite, besides having Nyla Rose on your show, you also have another All Elite member, Red Velvet.
Oh yes,
actually, yes.
Yeah, that match is. Whew, I'm looking forward to every match on the card. Like I said, I'm excited and I can't wait to sit down and call those matches from ringside. It's going to be, I might give myself a heart attack. I get so excited during that card. That match in particular, I'm looking forward to just because of the contrast in styles. Red Velvet, there's a reason that she's kind of skyrocketed to popularity being on AEW. There's a reason she got signed so quickly. Her talent level is immeasurable. She's one of those people that whenever you think of the term breakout star, you think of someone like Red Velvet. And then you have somebody like Insidious, who is her opponent at Rise of the Vixens. And Insidious is one of the most resilient and intense in-ring performers that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. I've seen her bounce back from injury. I've seen her fight through difficulty. She is a tenacious, scrappy fighter. Just this year alone, I've seen her in just an absolute barn burner of a match with Delilah Doom back in January. That was a excellent match, and you can check that one out. It's actually via the Loco Wrestling event, and that's on Title Match Network as well. But she also recently went through hell in a Good Housekeeping death match at our last show with Izzy James. And that might have been the most innovative death match I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen cat litter used as a weapon before, but somehow that came into play. And so I'm interested to see how Insidious is going to shift her style to combat Red Velvet in ring, because it's not a deathmatch environment. This is more of a straight up one-on-one wrestling competition. And I've seen what Insidious can do with her in-ring work, but Red Velvet, like I said, she's a breakout star. She's somebody who has come onto the scene and impressed everybody. And I think that Insidious is going in, as scary as she is, as the underdog, just in terms of the way that Red Velvet has had this meteoric rise. You've got to assume that she's going in as the favorite. So I really want to see how this match plays out. I think you're still muted, Rem.
Yeah, you're still muted, Remy. All right, that card, it looks awesome on May 22nd. I'm jealous of Kathy going.
Yeah,
I live all the way in Delaware. If I was over there in Texas or something, I'd be over there.
Oh, I know. So many people have expressed the same thing. It's like, oh, I wish I lived closer. I wish I could get down there to see the event. And I feel that it's one of those things where hopefully people who can travel will. Luckily, we do have an agreement with Title Match Network. It's going to be up. We're not streaming it live just because of logistics this time around, but it will be available to stream hopefully within about 72 hours of the event. It'll be up on Title Match Network. The only match that's not going to be available is going to be the Thunder Rosa versus Queen Aminata match.
Okay.
That one is a venue exclusive.
Okay.
Is something that we had to make it building exclusive for a couple of different reasons, mainly due to agreements with the NWA. But I think that one it's a good treat for everyone who can make it down. But the rest of the card, there's not a weak match on the card. We made sure of that. We made sure, the first Rise of the Vixens, Kathy, you were there, was an amazing event. We weren't sure that it was going to work. Rise of the Vixens 1 was actually my first event with the company. I came into the company just to do like hype videos and to work as a backstage interviewer. That was my introduction to the company. I ran into one of the former associated members of RWR at a show for Fearless Pro in January, about a month before the first Rise of the Vixens. And he told me what the main event of that card was. It was Rachel Rose, Roxy, and Insidious, all in a triple threat match for the Vixens title. And I was like, well, I know all three of those girls. I've been in and around the indie scene for a while now. Originally, I had started training for an in-ring career back in February of 2019. That didn't work out for medical reasons, but I still stuck around and tried to support the indie scene, and I got pretty close with a lot of people. So that January, whenever I found out what the main event was, I asked everybody involved if it would be okay if I, shot some hype videos, some promo stuff, just to get the word out about the event, because it sounded like something really cool, and I thought I could help out, just kind of like as a fan. And RWR chairman Scott Bruce saw those videos, and he liked them so much, he brought me in to help with the event. And that night, Rise of the Vixens 1 was my first night with the company. So we didn't know if that event was going to work. We didn't know if it was going to land. We didn't know if it was going to be a hit. We didn't know if it was going to draw. It was in a weird part of town. It was in a venue that I wasn't quite familiar with. We didn't know how many people we were going to fit in, but we packed that place. And every match on the card there that night also was just phenomenal. Special shout out to the intergender match between Lowrider and Diamante that ended with a chancla chase. That was I loved that. But from then and through the COVID pandemic, the things behind the scenes at RWR shifted. Scott said my first heart attack as well. But yeah, it was an amazing event, and it was the culmination of a lot of people's dreams and hopes, and we knew that eventually there was going to be a second one. And when Scott and I started putting together the card, we said, we've got to go bigger. And I said, well, how much bigger? And Scott goes, a lot bigger. And I didn't know what that meant in the initial run up to the event. And then he starts sending me messages. It's like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And the budget just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I sat down with Scott one time and I said, we really need to slow down on the next couple events, because I think we're spending like WWE style money on this Rise of the Vixens thing. And he says, well, you could have told me to stop at any time. And I was like, I didn't know that. I've only been in this business a year. So I'm learning how to GM, like through trial and error. But there is so much on that card that is near and dear to me. Like I said, Rachel, Insidious, and Roxy were in the main event of the first one. And those are the three girls that I will take a bullet for, because I would not still be in this business if it were not for those three. If they hadn't given me the blessing to do those promos, I probably wouldn't be working in indie wrestling right now. I'd probably just be doing my shoot job and going to some indie shows randomly. I don't think that I certainly would not be the GM of a company. So I owe pretty much my entire career to those three individuals. So seeing Rachel on AEW Dark, seeing Roxy debut with Ring of Honor, the last 2 weeks have just been an emotional roller coaster for me, because I could not be more proud of those. And now I'm just working to get Insidious up to that next level. So I'm hoping her match with Red Velvet will elevate her a little bit. Roxy's at that point now where she's been on a Ring of Honor program. She's challenged Deonna Purrazzo for the Impact Knockouts Championship. And now she's going to be facing off against Sunny Kiss at Rise of the Vixens. If there's one match that I think has the possibility to steal the show entirely, it would be that one, because the pure unbridled athleticism of the two of them in the same ring at the same time, I cannot imagine how good that match is going to be.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, it's going to be a banger, that match. Yeah, Roxy and Sunny Kiss. Ooh, yeah, I can't wait. Yeah. And I'm glad it's not being live, because on May 22nd I have a show to go to myself, you know what I mean? So I definitely would have to catch the replay, you know what I mean? So I'm glad it's not live, so I don't have to miss it live.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that we have our agreement with Title Match Network. They're an amazing streaming partner. We already have our last show, RWR Reloaded, is up there. If you want to go back and watch the original Rise of the Vixens, it's up there as well. And one of the things that we're striving for at RWR right now is just to make sure that not only are we putting on the best product that we can, but we're making it as accessible to everybody as we possibly can as well. For the longest time, I know I talked about how Texas wrestling has this long and rich tradition, and that's true. But in the last few years, Texas has been seen as sort of like a black hole in terms of it's such a big state and there are so many different promotions, but there was no real way to get the exposure that you wanted if you were a Texas wrestler. In order to get exposure, to be seen, to get signed, you had to get to either like the East Coast or the Midwest, St. Louis, Chicago, anywhere on the East Coast. That was where you went to go get noticed. You had to get on a WrestleMania weekend show to get some sort of exposure. With the boom that we're seeing in streaming, that's just not the case anymore. And Texas is one of those places now where the outside eyes are looking to Texas rather than people from Texas going elsewhere. So we've got wonderful promotions here in Texas that are doing amazing things. You've got us, you've got Booker T with Reality of Wrestling, you have New Texas Pro Wrestling. There's just so much amazing talent in Texas, and I'm glad that we're finally able to showcase that. And I'm proud of the fact that RWR is kind of leading the charge as far as women's wrestling is concerned, because between us and Mission Pro, the best women's wrestling in the nation is happening in Texas right now, because unfortunately, with Rise going away and with Shimmer currently not running, there's a vacuum, in my opinion, in terms of where you can see top tier women's wrestling stateside. So I'm glad that we're able to provide that. And I think that Rise of the Vixens is going to get a lot of eyes on some people that normally would not get that sort of exposure.
Oh yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, because when I think of Texas, yeah, that's like a huge state. Man, that place is huge, man. It's like as big as the United States. Woo.
People do not understand how big Texas is.
Yep.
There's a the saying of everything's bigger in Texas and all the cliches and all that. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything until you have, driven for 6-7 hours straight and you're still not across state lines. So that's whenever I was at a New Texas show a couple of weeks back where I was talking to Billy Starks, and Billy Starks made the road trip to Texas for that. She didn't fly, she drove. And I was like, well, how long was that drive? And she's like, 16 hours. So that tells you a little bit about how good the scene in Texas is right now, that people are willing to drive almost a day's length just to get to a show in Texas, because they know that that's where the good wrestling is. That's where the talent is. That's where the next big boom is.
Yeah, because it's funny you're saying that. You said that a second ago about you could drive 6-7 hours and you're still in the same state. Because I'm in Delaware, you know what I mean. An hour, I live like 5 minutes from Maryland. You know what I mean. So it's right there. You know what I mean. My buddy, he has family in Texas, and he was like, "Man, I went to Texas, and we were like, my uncle was like, hey man, let's go camping." You know what I mean. Hopped in the truck and started driving. He's like, "We're driving like 5-6 hours." He's like, "Where in the world are we?" "Oh, we're still in Texas." You know what I mean. We're on the way. Really? We're like, you ain't got a campsite like, a half hour away or something, man. We got to drive like 8 hours, and we're still in Texas. Like, geez. Oh,
yeah. I mean, I went to a New Texas show in Abilene, Texas, which is about 6 hours away from me. And you drive through, and you drive through every possible type of landscape in Texas whenever you go from Houston to Abilene. I like to say, it's like going from like a cyberpunk dystopia through like Red Dead Redemption. That's the sliding scale of what it's like in Texas. Texas really does feel sometimes like its own little country. And you can make all the jokes about like, oh, we're going to secede and break into our own country. Her. Like, there's always that. There's always those kind of crazy people here. But Texas is one of those states where we're blessed with an abundance of amazing talent in every corner of our large state. There's amazing talent up in Dallas. I don't get up there near as much as I should. But I'm constantly traveling back and forth between here and San Antonio. They're doing great stuff down in Corpus Christi now with PPW. I know PPW women's champion Maddie Rinkowski is going to be at Rise of the Vixens. I'm looking forward to seeing her again. She was scheduled for RWR Reloaded, but unfortunately had to back out because of an injury. So she's going to be making her RWR debut here at Rise of the Vixens, and I'm looking forward to that one. She's going to be taking on Vert Vixen, which that's a long-standing rivalry, and every time they get into the ring together, it's just a classic. So I'm hoping to see what kind of madness they pull out at Rise of the Vixens too.
That's right.
Yeah, that's going to be that's going to be a very interesting rivalry right there. I see that you also have another. You actually have a certain young lady who's actually making a return to wrestling. One that I'm familiar with. I know you are. Claudia Solis.
Claudia.
I believe she got out of business like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, Claudia took a step back.
And now she's making her return against Alejandra Malayan.
Yeah, so Claudia took a step back a couple of years ago, and recently returned to the world of pro wrestling earlier this year. She came back and hit the ground running. She came back with us during a 6-woman tag match at Loco Wrestling that we were sponsoring. She tagged with Rachel Rose and Jenna Lynn against Amber Rodriguez and her 2 flunkies. And Claudia looked like she had not missed a day in the ring. She just fell right back into it. And she's been working in and around the Houston area, refining her skills, trying to get back into the swing of things. She is so immensely good and so like naturally talented. She came back, and I think within a few weeks of being back on the scene, had already won a title at PWF here in Houston. That's exactly how talented she is. And yeah, she's got a grudge with Alejandra the Lion, because Alejandra has made a lot of declarative statements about her position in RWR and the Vixens division. And, you know, Claudia Solis helped build that division. She is one of the cornerstones of the Vixens division in RWR. She's an RWR original. So she took offense to the way Alejandra was positioning herself. And I'm not taking anything away from Alejandra the Lion, because she is an immensely talented performer herself. And I feel like a lot of Alejandra's problem right now comes from the influence of Gnostico, who, when he shows up at Rise of the Vixens 2, I'm going to like spray the entire building down with Febreze. He walks through the door. But that match truly is a grudge match. Those two do not get along. They have very, very strong opinions about each other's place in this business. And one way or the other, somebody's going to be proven right and somebody's going to be proven wrong. And I can't take anything away from Claudia, because she is really, really good. I've seen her at PWF defending that women's championship. But there's something about Alejandra's new attitude and that alliance with Gnostico that really does leave me feeling like maybe Claudia doesn't know exactly the version of Alejandra the Lion that she's going up against. She doesn't know exactly what she's getting into. So we're going to see exactly how brutal that grudge match can be. I just hope that Claudia is ready for it, to be perfectly honest.
I think you're muted again.
Yeah, Remy, you're muted.
Ah, my bad.
There you go.
So it's the card. I know it's gonna be a very stacked card. I know Kathy's probably. Kathy, I want to see the look on your face when you leave that card. I know it's gonna be a look of shock. But what I normally, a question I always ask, you know, all of our guests that we've had on here is, you know, what was in terms of you becoming a wrestling fan, because everybody that I know that we know here, you know, they started off as a fan. So my question to you is, what was the wrestling events or pay-per-view or match that made you become a fan of the sport?
Well, my love affair with wrestling is like really lifelong. So when I was really, really young, and I'm talking elementary school age young, I remember on weekends, like Sunday mornings, me and my dad would always be watching WWF Superstars. Like that was always on USA Sunday mornings. We'd sit down, we'd watch it. And that was really where I fell in love with it, was just watching on weekends. And the thing was, it wasn't any one particular match or event, but it was specific characters. Like I really, really got into I was just captivated by larger than life characters. Your people like The Undertaker, people like The Ultimate Warrior, people like Vader. Those were the ones that captivated me. So it was really just my dad and me watching WWF Superstars on weekends that got me into the world of pro wrestling. And I mean, I kind of fell out of it through the earlier part of my years, just because, you know, other things caught my attention. I have many different interests that like fell into my orbit. Like I got into comic books around the same time, and I didn't really come back to it until late middle school when the Attitude Era kind of captured the zeitgeist of the United States. And it wasn't actually a wrestling program that got me back into it, but I would always go over to my friend's house, and he popped in WCW NWO World Tour. And we played that for hours and hours and hours. And it just so happened that that night, it was a Monday. So he's like, well, why don't we watch some? I'm like, okay. So we turned on, it was WCW Nitro, and I was hooked by the NWO. That was what got me like into it again. And another one of my friends who would also watch with us was like, man, WCW is so lame. You need to be switching over to WWF. And so it became this thing where I was like, I absorbed everything I could. And eventually, of course, I was hooked. And I remember the first live wrestling event I ever attended was a house show for WWF it would have been early 1998, but it was at the Compaq Center, which is now Lakewood Church, which is kind of weird to think about the history and lineage of that building, because it used to be the Summit. And I remember like one of the most famous concerts of all time was an AC/DC concert at the Summit. And then it became Compaq Center, and you had all these different wrestling events. And now it's a mega church. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to unpack there. But from that point on, it was just, I was in love with wrestling. And it was my dad that got me into it. I think he got a hoot out of it. I've always loved stories. Like I've always been a big fan of reading and storytelling and things like that. And that's what drew me in with wrestling, is the stories and the characters. So the opportunity now to go from being a fan who is invested in those storylines to working behind the scenes to tell those stories that get people invested, it is a dream come true for me. All of this started because I unfortunately lost both of my parents in a car accident. It'll be 3 years ago tomorrow. So I decided when that happened, it was such a shock to me. I said, you only live once in life. You need to follow your dreams. And so that was when I said, you know what, I want to try to be a wrestler. And I found a training school here in Houston. And I did my first night of training, nearly died doing cardio. It's funny. Two of the trainers there are the people helping to handle the training are people that I have worked with closely now on this side of the ring. One of them being Brian Keith, who is one of the most extraordinary athletes I have ever met in my life, in any sport and anywhere. And if there's one person who I think deserves a major nationwide or worldwide spotlight, it's BK, and the other is Lowrider. So I got a little bit of the American style, a little bit of the lucha style, and I trained for a couple of months, had a medical episode, couldn't continue going, and I thought, oh, this is the end of it. At least I tried. And then I, found my way into the backstage role, and I'm really happy with where I am now. And I really like what I'm able to do and what I think I can do to grow the business. And as a fan, I went to these independent shows and I saw these performers, and I'm like, why are these people not on TV? They are so good. They're at my job to make sure that eventually they get the spotlight that they deserve. And I feel like between the work that myself and everybody else at RWR is doing, as well as the myriad other wonderful promoters that we have in Texas, I mean, I can't discount what Kiefer Bartek is doing with New Texas. I can't discount what Thunder Rosa is doing with Mission Pro. I can't discount Booker T. All of us, we are working to make sure that the next generation of TV ready stars are indeed TV ready and ready to carry an audience. And you can look at anybody who comes onto an RWR show. Every single one of them is ready for that next level, which is actually kind of, and this is a natural segue, kind of the point of our next event. After Rise of the Vixens, we are already planning our next event. It's June 18th. It's called Flash Forward. And we're going to be highlighting what we believe to be the next group of top talent that's going to be coming through RWR. And the number one person that we have our eyes on and who has really started to get the spotlight that he deserves is a guy named Chris Carter. And I don't know if you've seen any of Chris Carter's matches, but he is insane. Whenever I look at this kid, I see Jeff Hardy. I see Darby Allin. I see somebody who's going to be a bona fide star within the next 5 years. And we just dropped the announcement earlier today on Facebook. Chris Carter is going to be facing off against former X Division Impact X Division champion Ace Austin at RWR Flash Forward in June. And that match is going to be an instant classic. I look at what those two are able to do, and I know that that's going to be in the top viewed on title match for a long time to come. And we're putting together other matches on that card as well. We're hoping that every RWR title will be on the line at that show. So that's going to be the next part of our mission statement, is the idea that we're going to showcase talent that needs to be showcased. We're going to be showcasing talent that people may not recognize exactly how good they really are, but that night they actually will be able to see what is so special about those individuals.
Awesome. So in terms of promoting,
yeah, I'm here. I got you.
Yeah. In terms of promoting, let's say if somebody's looking to become a promoter, get into the business, they're not looking to be a wrestler. They just want to be the behind the scenes person that sets up the shows. What advice would you give that person?
Make sure that if you're going to become a promoter, you have access to the best psychiatric care that money can buy. Because promoting is, and I learned this very, very quickly, promoting is one headache after another. It is one unexpected hiccup after another. You have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be able to roll with any punch that comes your way. Case in point, we launched Rise of the Vixens last year. We had our next event lined up, and then COVID. We had to cancel. We had an amazing card lined up. It was going to be a phenomenal night of wrestling, and then pandemic shut us down for months. And it's one of those things where you deal with it. You roll with what you play the hand you're dealt. We also, during last year, had to deal with the after effects of the speaking out movement, which is not something that a lot of people like to talk about, but it's one of the things that I, having been an advocate for sexual abuse victims and having personal connections to instances of sexual abuse, I took that very seriously, took it very close to heart. And there are some people within our industry who don't, and that's unfortunate. But we had to make adjustments, and not just us at RWR, but everyone in the independent scene and in Texas in general had to roll with those punches. Whenever we, case in point with Rise of the Vixens 2, we had to adjust our venue several times because either just capacity constraints or distance or pricing or what have you. You just have to be able to adapt. Never be the guy who plants your feet in the sand and says, I'm not willing to budge, because if you become that guy, your promotion is not going to last. You have to be willing to adapt, improvise. You have to think on your feet and do whatever you can to make sure that you're putting on the best possible show that you can. But I'm not going to pretend that it's not stressful. But I will say that it's also incredibly rewarding. But also, if anybody in the greater Houston area is thinking of starting up a promotion, my advice is don't, because there's too many of us. There are only so many venues in the city of Houston, and there are more promotions than there are venues. And I don't know if you know this, but time is a flat circle. And so like we can't exactly all fit into the timetable that we are. I know last week there were 3 shows running simultaneously in the city of Houston. And I mean, that's great, but at the same time, as a promoter, you have to be afraid of, is like, okay, if there are 3 people running on the same night, there are only so many wrestling fans in any given area. You look at what WWE draws, and you can't assume that everyone who goes to a WWE event is going to come to an indie show, because those fans are WWE fans. They are not wrestling fans. Wrestling fans are a different breed. Indie wrestling fans are an entirely different breed. So if you've got 3 shows running at the same time, you are splitting that audience. So my advice is, if you want to get involved in the backstage promotion, whatever, my advice is to seek out your local indie and find a way to help and build a promotion, rather than thinking, I can do this, I'm going to start my own. Because if I had tried to start up my own promotion, if I had somehow managed to get the capital to pay off wrestlers and get a venue and all of that good stuff, all I would be doing is competing for market share. And right now, it's great for fans that we do have an indie boom, but for independent promoters, it's fighting tooth and nail for a spot. And I feel like in the long run, the more promotions there are, eventually a lot of people's feelings are going to get hurt. A lot of people are going to lose money, and it doesn't grow the scene the way that we could if we worked a little bit more collaboratively.
That's pretty solid advice right there. You do have a point. I definitely see where you're coming from with that. Definitely makes a lot of sense too. My last question before I turn it over to Kathy. I know Kathy's chomping at the bit to like ask you so much about May 22nd and whatnot. In terms of promoting, in terms of promoting in professional wrestling, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I'm hoping that we will have grown RWR to the point where maybe it can be a touring promotion. I've gotten numerous messages, and that's one of the other things I will tell you about becoming a promoter, is be willing to have your inbox blow up at any given moment. But I've gotten a ton of messages about, do you guys ever come to Tennessee? Would you ever consider running in Florida? And the truth of the matter is, right now, it's just not feasible for us. And it's not feasible for our talent, because we can't anticipate where they're going to be like, if I want to book an event in Florida in 3 months, I can't necessarily know where my talent is going to be at that point. Like, it's just a little bit too much of it's a bridge too far right now. We can't hold somebody to those dates long enough out for us to make that booking. So I'm hoping that within the next 5 years or so, we can build up this company to the point where, yes, we can tour outside of the state of Texas. Or short term, I want to go outside of Houston, long term outside of Texas. And maybe even take RWR to possibly Mexico or Canada. The RWR Heavyweight Championship has been defended outside of the United States before. So in our mind, it is a legitimate world championship. But we'd also, there's no reason that we couldn't go back to Mexico or Canada or anywhere overseas to really expose our guys to a different audience. But that's the end goal, is to grow this thing into a much bigger entity than it is right now.
Awesome. I'm definitely hoping that y'all get the news to actually at least get out of Texas. And I know definitely Kathy will be very happy if you were to say, hey, we're running in Louisiana. She'll definitely because she actually, like I said, you probably know, but she travels from all the way from Louisiana to Houston to see wrestling shows, and that's dedication right there. Then again, I can't even talk, because I've actually gone from Florida to New York just for shows called Pro Wrestling Syndicate. But my situation was different. I actually had like a buddy pass. Well, I worked for Spirit Airlines at the time, and I actually had like the benefits. So I was like, okay, PWS is running this weekend. Okay, I guess I'll see it. Use those benefits, and I used to like fly up there and then fly back next day. So yeah, I know she would definitely be happy to to hear you guys are running in Louisiana as well.
Yeah, and we definitely would love to run in Louisiana. There are some really good promotions over in Louisiana running right now. Even if we don't necessarily run our show there, we could run something in tandem with Wildcat or Elevate Pro, something like that. Louisiana is definitely close enough to us that they feel like a real neighbor. And I know that there's a lot of our fans that are in Louisiana that we'd love to be able to, have a show happen there. So I think that that's probably, if there's anywhere we're going to go first outside of Texas, Louisiana is a good bet.
Awesome. Kathy, you heard that? She's clapping it back there. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Kathy. I know she has a bunch of questions. So Kathy, go ahead. The floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Remy. Hey, Jacob, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
No problem.
So you said a little bit of how you got into the national, wrestling scene with WWE, WCW, and everything. But how did you get into the Texas indie scene? I know you live there, but what started it for you?
So it all kind of happened naturally. Like I said, it was back in like 98 that I started going to events. So in 98, I went to that house show for WWF, and I went to a Nitro show in San Antonio later that summer. And my dad and my mom, God bless them, they encouraged my love of wrestling. They were okay with it. But even back then, tickets to the big two were expensive as hell. And obviously, I wanted to go to every one that I could, but we couldn't afford that. Well, my dad, having ties to the Humble Police Department, was often in Humble, Texas. And in Humble, Texas, just about every other weekend, they would run independent wrestling shows out of the Bingo Hall, promotion called Texas All-Star Wrestling, which is actually the promotion whose school I ended up going to train with. So it was kind of like a full circle kind of thing. But those were the shows that got me into indie wrestling. The idea of like, oh, I can buy a front row ticket for $20 and see like the previous stars who maybe aren't under contract with WWF or WCW anymore. And I can see, the new guys who are going to eventually go on to sign with the other companies. So I remember very specifically with TASW for one of the shows that I went to that was for my birthday weekend back in, I want to say 2001. I got to meet Hacksaw Jim Duggan for the first time at that show. I also got to meet Jake the Snake Roberts, which was a huge deal for me because back whenever I was a kid, Jake the Snake was the coolest. And of course, it's like, oh, I'm Jake and he's cool. So I'm cool, like it's typical, 7-year-old BS. But what was cool about TASW was at the time, one of their top guys was Sean Hernandez. And whenever I first started ring announcing, he was at one of the Loco shows that I did. And I was getting out of the ring as he was coming in, and he just mean mugs the crap out of me as I'm getting out of the ring. And I'm like, oh man, if 2001 Jacob could see where he's going to be in the year 2021, he would crap his pants. So, it was, I got into pro wrestling at a national scale, and because I loved it so much, I wanted to find whatever wrestling I could get my hands on, and that just happened to be indie wrestling. And thank God that even during those years that many people considered Texas to be a black hole, there was still good Texas indie wrestling around that I could latch on to and sort of, jump into. More recently, my foray back into indie wrestling was my first show back was a Hurricane Pro show in Beaumont. I think that would have been late 2018. The main event there was Rachel Ellering, Britt Baker, Miranda, and Santana Garrett. And I just happened to cross a flyer for it on Twitter, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. I'll drive down to Beaumont. And that was whenever I was like, you know what? I really did miss going to indie shows. It's a different sort of vibe. I met a lot of people that, you know, I still will see at shows, because one thing I've learned about independent wrestling fans is they are fiercely loyal to the independent scene. And, you know, it sort of snowballed from there. So Hurricane, fell back in love with it. Somebody told me, hey, in January, there's going to be a big, like, mega event down in Texas City at Booker T's, arena. You should go to that. And I did. And just did not stop going for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's Roll on the Rise, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I was there too, and that's what started
that was the first time I met you. Yep. That was the first time I met you. First time I met Bryant. Just you know, the staples of the Texas independent wrestling community, and that was the first time that I met a lot of the people that now I consider my colleagues. It was the first time I met Jenna Lynn. It was the first time I met Hyon. First time I met Kylie Ray, who I miss very much, and I hope that she's doing well. It's kind of weird. I'm sitting down and I'm trying right now to write little journal entries, kind of day by day, so that I don't forget what this journey is like. And eventually, I'd like to publish that book of what it really is to journey through the independent wrestling scene, because it's been a crazy ride, and a lot of, like, if you made it into a movie, it would seem like it's a little too convenient that everything linked up as well as it did, but I mean, it honestly just happened that way. It happened organically, and I couldn't be happier with the way things have turned out.
Yeah, that Roll on the Rise show, man. It started, so a mutual friend through, Monica was like, hey, Saraya Knight's going to be at Roll on the Rise. And there was all these other people, I knew of Shotzi Blackheart and all these other ones there. But, I got to see Hyon and Rachel Rose and Jenna Lynn and, fell in love with the Texas indie scene. So then I found out about Hurricane Pro. I was like, oh, cool, it's in Beaumont. And then just kind of snowballed from there, and I pick and choose the ones I want. And then, with COVID, it was kind of hard. I went a whole year, a year and a half without seeing anything. So I was like, this is, Rise of the Vixens. Like you said, I went to the first one. So I was like, the second one. And then with all this AEW talent, I was like, I have to go. Half of the roster is people we've interviewed. So,
yeah,
the other half.
You're irresponsible not to go out and support them, right?
Right. So it's half of the roster and half of my friends. So I'm like, I have to go back. Even with, the whole COVID thing, I'm like, I am chomping at the bit to go. And I was like, that's the one I'm going to go to. So, two whole years later, still doing the indie scene. I love it. Like in Texas, like you guys are like my family, like, outside of Louisiana. You're like my little Houston family, and I was like, I have to go see them. It's been too long.
Yeah, that's one good thing about the Houston scene, is that it does feel a lot like a family. I'll go to other promotions, and it's always the same people there. Even if they're not working, they're there to show support, and I love that. So having that with the fans as well is just it's what makes independent wrestling so fun and so great. Knowing that it's like, oh, hey. I know that Kathy's going to be out there, or, before Bryant started working with us as our official photographer, I knew that Bryant would be there, or Monica, or Paul, or any of the guys that I've come to know as being big supporters, Ryan and Luis, and, everybody who always comes out to support these indie shows. And that's what I love about indie wrestling now so much, is knowing that there are these people who are so fiercely dedicated and who are so invested in seeing us and everybody who steps into our rings, seeing those people get that success.
Yeah, I definitely, Bryant's going into photography, like you said, and then Jenny's a camera woman. If I was in Texas, I'd definitely be like some, a commentator, or like some avenue like you took. You used to be an announcer, or, because I have, a degree in mass communication. So like, if I lived in Texas, I'd definitely be a part somewhere doing something, probably with Jenny. Like we'd be like camera women together.
It's funny because I was at last weekend as I was ring announcing for a TASW show, and Nathan Bradley had a match. So Jenny was there, obviously, but it wasn't being broadcast, so Jenny wasn't on camera duties. And as I was ring announcing Nathan, I thought in the back of my head how weird it is not to see Jenny sprinting around the ring chasing him during the entrance. I was like, this is not right. There's something missing here. So it's just little things about the Texas indie scene that become staples, that become hallmarks of what we do. It becomes something that you're so accustomed to and so used to. It feels, like you said, like family. To me, the independent wrestling scene feels like home. And I walk into a building, no matter what venue it is, no matter what show it is, and I'm never quite as happy or as excited as I am on show day. And it's like I said, after the past 2 weeks, seeing Rachel and Roxy get that national exposure, I was just over the moon. And I haven't seen either of them personally since that happened. I've warned Roxy that at Rise of the Vixens, when I see her, she's going to get tackle hugged, because I have never been as proud of somebody as I was of her. I actually heard about her Ring of Honor debut a few days before it aired, and I had to keep it quiet. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Same thing with Rachel. So I heard about those two. The one that I didn't know about Hyon. I did not expect to see Hyon on that show. And so when she came out, I marked out big time because I'm a big supporter of Hyon, despite the fact that she ran off to Illinois of all places.
Traitor.
Her. So I was happy to see her get the spotlight. Same with Lainey Luck, who I've run into a few times. She's awesome. So it's, independent wrestling has brought me an immeasurable amount of joy. Working for RWR has made me supremely happy. Frustrated as hell, but also supremely happy. So, I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, not only we're proud of you became a general manager, and Jenny's a camera woman, Brian got into photography, but we see these people. I've been, like I said, I was watching since Row of the Rise 2 years ago, and AQA is in NXT now, and Will Alday's on AEW, and
the AQA thing is great.
Yes.
Whenever I first saw her show up on NXT, she comes out, and I mark out, and I jumped off of my couch and I pointed and I go, I met her hamster. Which that's my claim to fame, is that I actually got to hold Thilo at the Row Awards. That was that's my claim to fame. I'll never get any higher than that. But I mean, everybody is just getting so successful, and I can't claim to be responsible for anybody's success. I mean, I'm not saying that the reason that Rachel Rose was on AEW is because she did my podcast, and then a year to the day she shows up on AEW. I mean, that's not a coincidence, but no, everybody is working so hard to get the recognition they deserve, and I'm just so immensely proud of them. I'm like I said, I'm going to tackle hug Roxy because I'm supremely proud of her. Rachel will get a firm handshake, and then I'm going to step back out of kicking distance. But I mean, I'm just proud of everybody who's worked so hard to get to where they are.
Yeah, I haven't seen them in over a year, so hopefully they let me get hugs. And yeah, Roxy's going to kick me in the shins again, I'm pretty sure, but hey, the last time she kicked me in the shin, she became Diamond's champion. So maybe I have something to do with that. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't believe in coincidences. So
yeah. And she did, and she appeared now in. She's in ROH. So hey, maybe she'll be like a champion over there if she kicks me in the shins again.
Yeah, Roxy is going to be a national champion soon.
Oh, for sure.
There's no way that she's not. She's too talented not to be. And I like I said, there are some people that I will always support. Roxy's one of the ones that I'll take a bullet for.
For sure. Yeah.
Like whenever I first met Roxy, she was only 17, and watching her in the ring, I had no clue because she was too damn good to be a 17-year-old kid. And now, it's been, she's 19 years old. She's on Ring of Honor. She's grown up so much. In my shoot job, I'm a teacher. Yeah. And I deal with 17, 18, 19-year-olds all the time. And none of them in the last 7 years that I've been a teacher have had the drive or determination or moxie that Roxy does. She is something special. Yeah. And I can only imagine where she's going to be in 5 years. Like, I can ask myself, where am I going to be in 5 years? And I can give you a good idea. The ceiling on Roxy does not exist. No. So there's no telling.
That's true. So, yeah, I was going to ask you that, your shoot job. How did you get into teaching? Like, what made you want to become a teacher?
Well, I have a degree in English, which is mostly useless if you're not a teacher, I found out. I didn't set out to be a teacher. I set out mainly to, I'm just really good with words. Which is part of the reason why I have a job at RWR, and part of the reason why I write most of our press releases and I do most of our PR and hype and everything, is just because I'm really good with words. So I got into teaching because it just happened to be something that was associated with my degree that I happen to be good at. And I love it. It's supremely rewarding. It's the only thing in the world that is more frustrating than being a wrestling promoter. But it's one of those things where I don't think I could ask for a better shoot job, especially because I get 2 months off in the summer to do as much wrestling stuff as I want.
Yeah, you get that special, summertime. That's what I'm jealous of, that teachers get the summers off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working an extra month this year. I'm doing summer school to get some extra cash for our big event in August, which I can't talk about.
Oh, got a teaser there. Okay.
Yeah, we have put down and we have booked someone huge for August. We're talking like one of the most talked about free agents currently active right now. So much so that I think that whenever we drop that poster, I don't think that people are going to be able to handle it. And I've had to and I know who she's going to be facing too. I know what the match is. So as soon as I can drop that match graphic, I think that our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are all going to implode into a singularity, because it's a match that people have wanted and have asked me, hey, can you book this? And I've said, I want to. And me and Scott have tried our best, and it's going to happen. So we're really excited about that. But I am working an extra month of school just to make sure that I can pay for it.
So Scott actually said, drop the venue while you're there. He said that in the comments just now.
The venue for August? He wants me to drop the venue for August?
I guess so.
Okay, well, if I screw this up and I'm letting the cat out of the bag early, hopefully Scott won't kill me.
It's all Scott's fault. It's Scott's fault.
It's all Scott's fault. It's never my fault. But yeah, August. So our big event is going to be August 27th. And we have been growing and growing and growing since we came back. RWR Reloaded was a huge success. We had to move to a much different venue for Rise of the Vixens just so that we could handle how many people wanted to come. And that trend has kept going. So in August, we had to find a real respectable venue for this match and for this card. And luckily, Scott and I are on good terms with somebody, and we had to ask him a bunch. Like, you don't understand how many times we had to ask. I think we had to ask him 5 times to use his arena.
Ooh.
But we're going to be running RWR August 27th at Booker T's World Gym Arena.
Oh my God. You heard it here first, people. I might have to go.
Yeah, if you can make it, that's the show to be on the lookout for.
Ooh.
It's going to be just a little bit too much for most of our fans to handle.
Wow. Yep. So we're the first ones to get it. That is awesome. Thank you for that.
Sounds exclusive right there.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, Scott can't hold on to secrets to save his life. I'm surprised he's not like tell him who the main event is. Tell him we can't do that this early.
No,
we will announce that in June. At Flash Forward, we will tell you what the main event of that show is going to be.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait for that. Holy crap. So yeah, so instead of well, I don't want you to say like too much because you have to keep some secrets in wrestling, but like how do you book people? You know, like you said in June Ace Austin's gonna be there and he's from Impact. And then like how do you get all these AEW people from on Rise of the Vixens too? Like not so, you know, don't give too much away, but like what's the process of like booking a show?
Well, one of the things that we are very fortunate in is that Scott has been around the wrestling business for his entire life. RWR Chairman Scott Bruce lives, breathes, and dies wrestling, and he knows just about everybody. There's not a lot of people that he doesn't know, but one of his good close friends and one of the people that we have a good working relationship with, obviously, is Thunder Rosa, and we have a good working agreement with Thunder Rosa. What they're doing with Mission Pro is amazing, and through her and through the grapevine, we were able to get connections in AEW. Scott previously has worked with people from Impact, so he's got a Rolodex a mile long. For me personally, it was the time that I spent on the Indies, just talking to people, getting to know people. The fact that it's like, if I decide that I want to have Jenna Lynn on a show, I just email Jenna Lynn because I've known her for almost 2 years now. We've like before I became GM, we were fairly close. I won't say the same thing for Rachel Rose. We knew each other, but I would never like personally reach out to her. I'll let Scott do that. Like for instance, whenever I booked Insidious and Delilah Doom for January, the way that came about is I knew that Delilah was going to be working at Sabotage up in San Antonio. So I was like, I'm gonna go to that show and I'm gonna talk to Delilah. So I did, and we exchanged information and worked out rates and times and all of that sort of good stuff. And that's just sort of there's a lot of legwork to it. There's a lot of building trust and relationships. And there's just a lot of knowing what people want to do. If you like, I know the people that Roxy and Rachel and Jenna, I know who they want to work. So all I have to do is I'll talk to Scott, or I'll talk to other people that are within the indie scene, and I'll be like, hey, I know somebody who really wants to work a match with so and so. Do you know how I get in touch with them? And usually someone will get me a way to contact somebody. And luckily, we live in the age of social media. And a lot of independent wrestlers have their booking information right on their profiles. So I can, even if we've never met, I can send a message to somebody and get a response back. And since I've become GM, I've been trying to network as much as I possibly can, everywhere that I can. There are people that I really, really, really want to bring in. One of my top prospects that I'd like to get down to Texas as soon as I possibly can is Erica Lee, who I've been going back and forth with on Twitter because I find her immensely entertaining. And I want to bring her down as soon as possible. I'd love to get, once we start doing more tag matches, I'd like to get the top dogs down here, Davien and Skylar. I'd like to get them down here. And, I'm just trying to, one of my big things as GM is I'm trying to let everybody know that we are an above board company. You're going to get paid. Whenever we book you, we will probably pay you in advance of the event so that you don't have to worry about travel expenses or am I going to get paid? Because there are a lot of independent wrestling promoters that are not quite as upstanding as Scott and myself. I've seen that firsthand. So booking is just, I can't give a blanket statement on what booking is like. Booking is a case-by-case basis, and sometimes it's really, really simple. Sometimes it's as simple as an email. Sometimes it's, making a 3-hour drive to San Antonio and negotiating rates. But my philosophy on booking is I'm thinking about what I believe the crowd wants to see, and also looking at matches that the crowd doesn't know they want to see yet. And that was what the philosophy behind Roxy and Sonny Kiss was. Scott knew right away that is a match that people didn't know they wanted it until we announced it. And then suddenly, as far as matches for Rise of the Vixens go, that was one that blew up on social media almost immediately, because people saw that match card and they went, that right there, 100%, that's what I want. And that's the reaction we want to have 100% of the time, is they look at our card and go, yeah, I'll buy that ticket.
Yeah, I think I literally said that word for word on Facebook. When you had it on there, I was like, this is the match I didn't know I needed, but thank you for making it. It's like, I can't wait to see Sonny Kiss and Roxy. Like, that's a barn burner. Like, well, the whole card is a barn burner, but that one, and I was like, that is one that I didn't know I needed, but now I do, so thank you.
Yeah, we're trying to give the people what they need.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. Well, I can't wait for May 22nd. But I have one more question before I turn it over to Rob. Now, you said you were a teacher and everything, but you also do, like, you got into graphics, and you were an announcer and commentator. So you have a little bit of a media background there. Like, did you take any classes on that, or is just natural?
I did not. So I'm entirely self-taught in most things.
Wow.
Before I was a teacher, I worked in a comic book store here in Houston, Third Planet Comics over off Highway 59. It's a huge, huge comic book store. And while I was there, myself and a coworker got bored, and we did what most coworkers do when they get bored. They said, let's start a podcast. And we did. And the podcast was about, we were just going to watch bad movies and talk about them. And so we made this podcast, and it was just for funsies. Like, we didn't think anything was going to come of it. And eventually that podcast evolved and grew, and it caught the attention of a radio station manager here in Houston for KPFT 90.1. And they needed programming to fill their HD2 station. They were moving into streaming broadcasting, and they needed more. They were trying to capture the millennial market, because traditionally public radio is more of the 75-year-old stoner Democrat listening to not quite NPR. That's their audience. So they wanted something a little bit that skewed a little younger, and we were, for that. So we did about 1.5 years on radio before our station manager that brought us in was ousted, and we decided to leave with him. So I had a background in podcasting and radio that I just kind of organically found my way into. And so that naturally, I learned how to develop my voice, learned how to develop cadence, learned how to tell a natural story and keep people invested. And that's why I was able to transition into ring announcing and commentary, because it was kind of a natural fit. The graphics thing came about because I saw how generic a lot of posters and flyers were for independent wrestling companies. And it's not everybody. And I feel like the game has stepped up a lot in the last year, but it was something where I was like, I think I can do better than that. So I just sort of, I found, I'm not rich enough to afford actual Photoshop. So one of the things that I did is I got, there's a program, and this is for anybody who's a Mac user out there. There's a program that's a Photoshop dupe for Mac OS, and it's called Affinity. It's $50 one time. It's not like Creative Cloud where you have to pay a subscription. It's a one-time thing. I'm like, I can eat a $50 charge to be able to do decent graphics. So between that and a couple of free apps on my phone, I'm able to do most of the graphic work for RWR without problems. And obviously there are some hiccups now and then. There are one of my, I don't want to say grievances, but one of my little pet peeves about the indie wrestling scene is that not everybody's promo pictures are of the same quality.
Yeah.
So there's discrepancies in how good I can make certain graphics look, but as GM, I help to book the shows. I put together the PR packages. I do the graphics. I run all the social media. I'm to borrow a term from Hion, I'm the Renaissance guy of RWR. There's not a whole lot that I don't do for the company. And some people will say that you should just pick one thing and learn to do that thing extremely well rather than being just kind of good at everything. But I would also counter that with, I think that I'm good enough that I can be really good at everything that I do. So we're going to go with that.
Yeah. A Jacob of all trades instead of a jack of all trades. There you go. Yep. Yeah, I kind of figured, because English, I had to take English classes too, like in mass communications. So they go hand in hand. So yeah, you being a commentator and announcer, that goes, you already have the background for it. You just had to do like the communications part of it too. So yeah, that's pretty cool. You got self-taught. That's awesome. So I will see you on May 22nd. It's been great having you, and I'll turn it over to Rob. Can't wait for it.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, sweet. Thank you, Kathy. So what's going on, Jacob, man? How's everything doing in Texas, man?
Oh man, we've personally the last few days have been kind of crazy. Houston got hit by a huge amount of rain, and we had a roof leak, so had to deal with that. And then yesterday we had some air conditioner failure, so I had to deal with that. But aside from that, everything's been going good. Rolling into the end of the school year, so things are finally starting to settle down, and I can really focus on Rise of the Vixens, because now that we're like 20 days away, I'm just getting really freaking excited.
That's right. Now you and Kathy, you're talking about, doing English classes and, going to college, having degrees and stuff. And it's like, man, I'm looking at y'all, I'm all impressed and all. And so you're looking at somebody who could barely get out of, elementary school. You know what I mean? I don't speak English well. I can speak Pootie Tang language, Salah K, flim flam on the tippy tap. I can do that. You know what I mean? So, man, y'all are awesome, man, Now, I do got to say, you're talking about Roxy and stuff. My mom and sister, sometimes they'll listen to the show, the podcast and all. Well, we had her on one time. And to this day, they will not let me down this little, when I was, this little story on there. Well, she, I guess when she was younger, she used to take buses to the, from her house or whatever to the show or whatever. Well, see, I'm kind of weird. I've watched a lot of movies and I think, well, if I've seen a movie, everybody's seen a movie. Well, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a perfect thing for me to throw a Jay and Silent Bob reference out, right? She's talking about riding the bus. I was like, let me ask you something. Did they charge you for the bus? She was like, yeah, I was like, man, that's crazy, man, because I remember when I went to school, I used to let you ride the bus for free. What's up with this charging stuff? And then she started trying to go in and explain it like, well, they got this, that, and the other. I was like, oh, no, I'm joking. My mom and sister are like, you were messing with that poor girl and teasing her.
I give Roxy so much crap about the Greyhound thing. Before I was ever with RWR, whenever I was just a fan who was a really big fan of Roxy, she would always be posting about like, I'm catching the Greyhound to Houston or whatever. And and one time she posted just this horror story of missing her Greyhound bus, or the bus was late or whatever. And so I was like, you know what? The biggest grudge match we could possibly book is Roxy versus a Greyhound bus. And I made the graphic for like Roxy on one side, Greyhound bus on the other side. The venue was somewhere along Highway 69. Like it was, and she still like occasionally I'll be like, hey, seen a Greyhound lately? Like I tease her mercilessly. I shouldn't, because that's part of the thing of being a wrestler is you've got to make the towns, you got to make those drives, and I actually really give her a lot of credit for spending as much time as she did on public transportation just to get to shows. And to go from Laredo to Houston, that is a long slog of a drive, whether you're doing it yourself or you're riding in a bus.
Oh, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, like you said, Texas, you can drive hours and stuff. It's just like, whoo, yeah. Oh, man. I can't imagine, driving, all those hours just by yourself. But then, sitting on a bus, like, you can't stop, stretch your legs, go use the bathroom when you want or get something to eat. You just got, you're on the bus driver's schedule. It's like, oh, yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now I do got to ask, man, about the Rachel Rose stuff, man.
Oh God.
What happened with her kicking you into super kicking you, man? Was she trying to get you to bend the knee? You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
no. Okay,
now,
so
shout out to Rachel Rose, former guest. I didn't get to interview her though, but if you ever want to come back on, hey.
so what happened was I made the mistake of being just in proximity to Rachel when she was in a bad mood. That's really what it boils down to. So she and Amber Rodriguez, who are finally going to be able to go one-on-one, they were acting a fool in the ring, and they were, threatening to hurt each other, like legitimately hurt each other. And I don't want professional wrestlers being injured in the ring, especially not whenever the match was over. I didn't want an injury occurring after the fact, because, I mean, I hate to look at it this way, but when a wrestler gets injured, that affects our bottom line. It affects their livelihood. So I got in the ring to separate those two groups so that nobody got hurt and nobody had to go to the hospital and pay ER bills, right? So I made the mistake of trying to separate Rachel, and she took offense to me not letting her murder Amber Rodriguez, and she snapped, and my chin took the brunt of that effort. So I don't hold any ill will towards Rachel. It was a heat of the moment type thing. I thank her for not giving me a concussion, because she has laser accuracy with those kicks. And she loosened a tooth, but I have dental coverage. But if I had had a concussion, I would have had to have missed work and all sorts of different things. So, so there were some pros and cons to that situation. Pro is that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. I could have gotten a spear.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, spear probably could cut you in half. You know what I mean? I guess, take one on the chin, I guess,
Yeah.
Now, did you... Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, if it came down to whether I would rather have Rachel super kick, spear, or have to take that freaking claymore that she does, I'll take the super kick any day of the week.
There you go. Now, did you did you get her back, man? Did you steal any of her food or something, or
no.
did you put a banana in the tailpipe of her car? So after the show, she's like, "Well, I want to start." Hey, somebody put a banana in the tailpipe. You know what I mean?
No, and here's the thing, ultimately, I understand what happened, and because I do respect Rachel so much, here's the thing: I'm always looking out for Rachel. I only want what is best for Rachel. So look at RWR Reloaded. She comes out because she's the Vixens champion and she wants to represent our company. She's the face of the company. She's a great champion. So she says, "Open challenge. I'm gonna let anyone challenge for my title." Great for business. I had no idea who was going to take that challenge. Then it was freaking Kiefer Bartek, right? And Kiefer decides he wants it to be a no disqualification street fight. And Scott, being the nut job that he is, said, "Yeah, let's do a death match to headline RWR Reload, and it's going to be our champion versus Kiefer Bartek." And the bad blood there is it goes back years. So I was like, this is going to be a massacre. And I stepped up there and I said, "You know what? You have an out. You don't have to do this. You do not have to take this match. You can step away. I will put something else in the main event. I've got plenty of people I can call. They'll be here in 5 minutes to put on a match. I don't want to see you get hurt." And Rachel, being Rachel, said, "No, give me Kiefer." And that match was brutal. Now, luckily, Rachel walked away intact. She took a spear through a table. Bartek took a power bomb to the outside through a table. There was a crown made of barbed wire that got shoved on someone's head. Rachel got a tombstone pile driver onto a pile of peeps. It was a massacre. But ultimately, I'm always looking out for Rachel because I want to see her succeed. Rachel has a problem of when she gets heated, Rachel makes problems for Rachel. So I'm hoping that between now and May 22nd, nothing else happens that is a problem for Rachel, because right now in my position, a problem for Rachel is a problem for me.
That's right. That's right. Now, when I was doing a little research, man, I did get to see you got another, young lady you got to meet, very talented. And I'm kind of actually jealous of this one, because she's like my celebrity crush or whatever. Her and Billy Kay. Shotzi Blackheart. Man.
Oh, Shotzi.
Oh, man. Now, Shotzi isn't like, she didn't super kick you or anything. She ain't super kick nobody, right?
No.
Okay.
Shotzi's awesome. I've met Shotzi on a couple of different occasions. She's one of those people that I am really, really happy for her success, because if you look at, her history in the wrestling business, there was a little bit of a feeling that she was never going to get to that next level, that she was always going to be sort of an indie darling. And of course we do love her on the independent scene, and we would welcome her back with open arms and any opportunity that we had to get her. But yeah, I've run into Shotzi quite a few times. The first time was at that Row on the Rise event, was the first time that I met her. And then I've met her a couple of different times at different Sabotage events. So yeah, she's one of those people that I'm really glad that I got to see her as extensively as I did on the indies before she got to that next level. If I ever get a chance to attend an NXT event, if they ever get to touring again, I'm sure that I'll go and show support for her. Especially, like, there's a lot of people in NXT now that I definitely want to go and support. AQA, of course. I'd love to. I think everybody who's ever been to a Row event, if NXT comes back to Houston, is going to be right there at ringside, like chanting for Angela.
That's right. Yeah. AQA. Yeah, I was so happy to see that she signed and all. She was actually, we had her on here. She was my very first interview on here. Oh, I was so nervous. I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep and stuff. And I'm just like, oh man, listening back on that episode, I'm like, oh man, I'm not that much better, but I'm like, I'm a little better. Yeah, I got a little better, but yeah, I always wish I could talk to her again and stuff, but she's on NXT kicking butt, beating Tony Storm. So, hey, I'm all happy for her. Keep on kicking ass. That's what I say.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when I was doing some, doing some research, man, I seen this thing, man. I guess it was a present. Now, my dad and I, he got me into Ghostbusters and stuff. We used to watch that movie and stuff a lot, right? Now, quick story, like I used to wrestle in high school and stuff, right? When I was a freshman, I upset the senior and beat him, like real quick. I pinned him real quick. He called me, he shot in on me, cement mixer, bam, pinned him. Well, after the wrestling match, I can't, it was Delaware State News or News Journal. One of them come up and they're asking me a question. And they're like, oh, yeah, so, how would you feel, got upset, I just looked at him and I was just like, I came, I saw, and I kicked his ass, right? I had to throw the Ghostbusters in there. I just wanted to make my dad smile, right? Oh, my coach, he didn't like it, Because, I'm all like that, man. Oh, I got in trouble, man. But my dad, he was like, yeah, that is awesome. So I got asked, man, when did you get into Ghostbusters, man? And did you put that Ecto 1 together? Have you put it together yet?
No, I'm saving the Ecto 1 for this summer whenever I have time, because I'm a big Lego guy. I collect Legos, have for years and years and years. And I know what those multiple 1,000-piece sets, how long they take to build. So I'm like, I'm gonna wait till summer whenever I have like a full couple of days to actually make sure that I get it right. Because they did one of the 1989 Batmobile that I put together, and that took 3 days to get through. Although I think that one was harder just because everything was black.
Okay. But
yeah, I'm saving that one for the summer. Ghostbusters is one of those franchises that I got into again whenever I was really, really young. Whenever I was a kid, the real Ghostbusters cartoon was still on the air.
Yes, I love it. Oh.
And I had like all the toys and action figures. I had the firehouse, the play set. You could buy the slime. I remember the slime. My mom hated it, but I loved it. I had the plastic proton pack that had like a foam noodle for the
nice
for the beam. I was really big into Ghostbusters as a kid, and I'm one of those people who still to this day will defend Ghostbusters 2 as an entertaining movie.
Yeah, it's good.
I constantly quote Ghostbusters 2 and nobody gets it. So like I'll introduce somebody and my favorite line to go to is you're like the buzzing of flies to him. And nobody gets it because it's Ghostbusters 2. I'm really looking forward to Afterlife if it ever decides to come out.
Yeah.
It's been pushed back multiple times now. But yeah, Ghostbusters is one of those things where it's a fun franchise. I like it because it's limited. You know, it's not 19 movies long.
Yeah.
It's 2 movies, one we don't talk about, and then one that's coming out. So, and then of course you've got the TV series. So it's one of the things that's really cool, and you'd probably appreciate this, is here in Houston, this is something I found out whenever I was still working at the comic book location, was we have a fan group called the Houston Area Ghostbusters. And they are like the 501st Legion for Star Wars. They do the cosplay. They they have their own Ecto-1. They do the like movie accurate costumes, and they'll visit and do charity events. They came out like whenever we did Free Comic Book Day, they would come and take pictures with everybody. I remember one particular Free Comic Book Day, we had the 501st Legion and the Houston Area Ghostbusters in the store at the same time. So you had stormtroopers alongside the Ghostbusters, and it was a lot of fun. So it's one of those franchises that is like the fan base is really dedicated, and I really appreciate that about the franchise.
Oh yeah. We have a Comic-Con here in Delaware, every year. Well, it didn't happen last year, because of COVID or whatever. But a Batmobile will come around. Somebody that owns a Batmobile and an Ecto-1, they'll come around, and always, I love, checking those out, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I wish somebody had a James Bond, Aston Martin car, come around here. I did get to see that at the Franklin Institute when I was a kid. But yeah, I wish somebody.
Here in Houston, we have a con called Comic Palooza, which RWR actually ran a wrestling event at one of the Comic Paloozas not too long ago. But every once in a while, they'll have like movie replica cars that people own. And I remember one time I went in there, and they had the Batmobile, they had the Ecto-1, they had the Jeeps and the Ford Explorers from the original Jurassic Park.
Ooh, nice,
super cool. I'm one of those people. I'm a big fan of just about everything nerdy. I'm a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've collected comics for well over 20 years. Last night on a lark, my wife asked me, "Hey, what's the weirdest Godzilla movie?" Because we just recently watched Godzilla versus Kong, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to make you watch Godzilla Final Wars, and we're going to see if we get through this without a divorce." That is the weirdest movie I own. And so we're about halfway through, and she turns to me and goes, "Wait, there's aliens in this now?" And I was like, yeah, just roll with it.
That's right.
There's not a whole lot out there that's nerdy that I don't get into.
Oh yeah, man, I'm the same way. I'll do this. I'll do that also. I'm surprised you didn't show her anything with Godzuki.
Oh no, the first Godzilla movie I ever showed her was Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, which had the little baby Godzilla. And my wife, she's gonna hate me for this, my wife is the most tender-hearted person in the world. And so at some point in the movie, Space Godzilla kidnaps baby Godzilla, and my wife, her maternal instinct kicked in, and she's watching this Godzilla movie on the couch, clinging to a pillow and crying because the baby got kidnapped. Oh. And I was like, "You are the most precious thing I've ever seen in my life."
That's right.
It was adorable. Yeah, she loves it was that one, and I forget whichever one had Godzilla Jr. I think that one she also
with the little kid with Godzilla Jr. That one.
Yeah. She saw
I know. I can't remember the name of that one, but
I can't remember which one it is. And my anybody who's a big Godzilla freak is yelling at the screen right now. But it's it's been a long day, so I can't remember which one that was.
Oh yeah, that's right. Now, what did you think of Godzilla versus Kong, man? Did you think?
I loved it. I went into it thinking there was going to be more Godzilla because I'm a much bigger Godzilla guy than I am a King Kong guy. But I think that the movie worked better because of the focus on Kong, because Kong can be and should show emotion, and you can connect to Kong in a way that you shouldn't be able to with Godzilla, because Godzilla is pure lizard brain.
Yeah.
He's a representation of a force of nature, whereas Kong has that, that evolutionary link to mankind being an ape. So that connection with Kong as the lead character of the movie really sold it. And it didn't help, or it didn't hurt that you could actually see the monster fights this time around.
Oh, yes.
To, what I like to call Pacific Rim syndrome, where you can't see crap.
Yep. It's in the dark.
It's all in the dark, and it's nothing but pixels.
Yep, and it's in the rain. It's in the rain. It's in the dark.
Rain, dark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was glad. I was so happy too. I was like, yes, I can see it. It's in the daylight. Oh man, yeah, that's awesome. And I also liked how Kong was wielding Thor's Stormbreaker. How he went to the thing. Yeah,
He made
Stormbreaker.
himself a little
rolling around with that.
Stormbreaker out of a Godzilla.
I was like, oh man,
was-
yo, that's right. Yeah, okay, God, okay, Kong, that's right. Yeah, I enjoyed that movie too, man. I'm kind of hoping they do some more, but
I've heard that the director Adam Wingard, who pretty much everything he's done has been pretty damn good. I've heard that he's pushing to do a Kong centric sequel, so we might get Son of Kong or Kong in the Hollow Earth or something along those lines. And I'd be first in line to watch that.
That's right. That's right. Now, did you get to see Mortal Kombat? Have you seen that yet?
Yeah, I'm an outlier on Mortal Kombat because I absolutely hated it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought it was okay. Now I didn't like where Home Dude how they have to introduce a new guy and give him Aquaman skin. Like you have hundreds of characters. You could just pick somebody.
Here's my thing with Mortal Kombat, and my short review of Mortal Kombat was I said that it made Street Fighter look like The Godfather Part 2. The thing about Mortal Kombat, and it really pissed me off, is the first 10 minutes are excellent.
Yeah, that's Sub-Zero Scorpion.
In feudal Japan, that was great. Everything after that really doesn't work. Part of it is because you're introducing an audience surrogate character that doesn't exist in the Mortal Kombat game, so we have no reason to care about him whatsoever. If they wanted to do that, the surrogate character should have been Sonya Blade. Because the whole way that they set it up is, oh, you're chosen for this tournament. Well, they also said Sonya wasn't. So she could have been the audience surrogate. They could have shown her putting together her little wall of clues. They didn't need the audience surrogate. I am 100% convinced that it was a studio mandate, that the studio said, well, we need an audience surrogate, but God forbid it's a woman, because this is Mortal Kombat, and I don't think women play Mortal Kombat because I have an old school misogynist take on everything. So it's got to be white bread dude number whatever, and let's give him an MMA background because the kids love MMA. Like, so much of it didn't work for me. I also felt like it didn't have any of the charm that the original 95 Mortal Kombat had. As cheesy as it was, it's still immensely entertaining. There was not one scene in the new Mortal Kombat that had an ounce of the entertainment value that the Johnny Cage versus Goro fight in the original Mortal Kombat had for me. I also, and this is just a stupid nitpick on my part because I'm all about aesthetics, I didn't like that when we finally got Scorpion, which was for all of like 10 minutes at the end, that his look was still as a samurai. It made him too bulky. Scorpion needs to be more of an athletic, like silent ninja type of look. That bulky samurai armor kind of killed the vibe of the fight for me. But that's a stupid nitpick on my part. I mean, your mileage may vary on that one. I'm hoping that when they get to a sequel, because of course there's going to be a sequel, a lot of my problems will go away. Maybe they'll do with this new guy what they did to Johnny Cage in Annihilation and kill him in the first 30 seconds of the next movie. Because I do not care about him whatsoever. I've heard talk that they're going to introduce him into a future game. Can't salvage it. I'm sorry. He's too boring. It's like, okay, he got Black Panther's suit and a couple of sticks. I don't care.
That's right. Yeah, man, I kind of want Johnny Cage in, but I understand why they didn't put him in here because of Kano, man. That guy was entertaining.
Yeah,
man.
There's only
you couldn't have Kano and Johnny Cage,
There's only one wisecracking quip machine in a movie, and
but yeah, man, I'm kind of excited for the next one if they do one, man. Now, my favorite fight in the original one was Johnny Cage and Scorpion, where he went to the thing. That was my favorite.
Where they like traveled to purgatory or whatever.
Yeah, where they went to that one. Yeah,
used the saw blade.
Yep, I love that one. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, and Shang Tsung, Johnny Tsunami. Oh man, he was the greatest, man. In the '95 one, man. I kind of
the original Shang Tsung blows the new one out of the water. Just in terms of personality and screen presence. Like the original one is cheesy as hell. It's a ham fest, but sometimes that's what you want. The new one, I think, like it took itself a little bit too seriously in certain parts, but at the same time was also too silly for its own good. It didn't strike an appropriate tone at any point during the movie, and I think that was the biggest downfall for me.
Yeah, man. I like the very beginning, like like you said, the very beginning, and I actually enjoyed that last fight. The very beginning and very end were like the best. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, because Sub-Zero, how you going to stab a man and freeze his blood and then stab him with his own blood? I thought that was like the most cold-blooded
there
thing
was
to
some
do.
really cool moments
awesome.
in it.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Really cool moments in the fights. But one of my biggest problems is, and like I'm a huge fan of martial arts films.
Oh yeah, I love Kung Fu.
Like earlier this year, I picked up the Criterion collection. That's like the ultimate Bruce Lee collection. It had, of course, Enter the Dragon's in there, but like The Big Boss and a bunch of his other earlier films. And one of the things that I appreciate about good martial arts films is uninterrupted takes of fight scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that I hated about the new Mortal Kombat is, and the director is very, very good at staging fight scenes, but the editing of it distracted me from the fights, because during these fights, which are very well choreographed, he would go from a close-up to pulling back to an obstructed shot.
Yeah.
And I hated that. Like, let me see the fight.
Yeah.
If I can't see the fight in a movie that is centered around fighting, you have a problem.
That's right.
And so ultimately, I hope that that's another thing that they address in the sequel.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of quick cuts either and stuff, man. Have you seen that movie, the Raid movies? Now, if you want to see
I love the Raid.
Oh man, those
the
fight
first
scenes,
one
man,
is one of my all-time favorites.
Yes.
The second one I think is a little too overlong for its own good, but it has some amazing fight scenes.
Yes, yeah, they're two completely different movies. Like the first one is like Judge Dredd, the second one is like Godfather, type deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's two different totally. Yeah, those movies are awesome. Because the second one, that prison fight, all just one
prison
continuous
fight.
shot. Oh, woo! Yeah, it's just one continuous fight. You know what I mean? Where they're in the mud, just all that. Oh.
Yeah, and it's like I love martial arts films in general. I love, but I have an affinity for like the choreography of fights, which is probably why, I mean, it ties a little bit into pro wrestling. Is like I like the way that certain matches get staged. So I also like whenever you see a fight scene in a movie that's not necessarily an action movie. For example, one of the best fight scenes I can think of is the hallway fight scene in a movie called Old Boy. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, yes, with the hammer.
With the hammer,
Woo.
right?
Yes.
Uninterrupted,
Mhm.
one take, just absolutely brutal. And I think it was a huge inspiration for a lot of the fight scenes in the more recent Daredevil Netflix show. Those are the type of fights that I like to see on film. And to contrast that, you can look at the fights in Daredevil, which were very well choreographed and very well shot, versus the terrible choreography and editing in Iron Fist.
Yes.
Which should have had amazing fight choreography. But apparently the fellow who played Iron Fist didn't want to put in the time for the training. So I'm hoping that Marvel is going to rectify the kung fu choreography quagmire they have whenever Shang-Chi comes out later this year.
That's right. Yeah, I'm excited for that one. Yeah, and there's another one real quick, man. Tony Jaa and the Protector. There's this one where he goes into the hotel or whatever, man.
Yes.
Just one continuous scene. He's just up there, da 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 da, and it's like he's really hitting.
Tony Jaa Tony Jaa is an amazing martial artist. Like the Protector is really good, but personally, in terms of Tony Jaa performances, you can't beat Ong Bak.
Yeah, I was about to say Ong Bak. Yes. And then another one, Ip Man. Oh man, those movies are great too. Ooh.
A little bit of diminishing returns as they go further along.
Yeah.
After 4, you're just like, I think I tuned out with the Mike Tyson thing in 3.
Yeah.
But 1 and 2,
yeah,
chef's kiss.
Which one's the one where he fights the 3 karate masters, like right in the thing, and his Sammo Hung's up in there, and they get up on the table and there's like bah, 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 bah,
I want to say that was 2.
First or second one or something, man. That was awesome.
Because I binge watched 1 and 2. Like when the second one came out, I caught a double feature, and so they kind of run together for me. But great series. Donnie Yen is amazing.
Yes, he is, especially in Star Wars. I am one with the Force.
Oh, yeah.
The Force is with me.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, man. Now look, man, I can go on and on about this nerd stuff all day, man. Talking to you all night, man. But I know you got things to do. You're busy and stuff. So before I pass it on to Remy, man, I got one question to ask you, man. From being doing wrestling and stuff, being backstage and all. Are there any funny backstage road stories you can share with us? Anything. You can change the name to protect the innocent.
I'm trying to think of if there's anything that stands out. But like for the most part, I'm kind of kind of in the zone when I'm at shows. So if there's like stuff happening, it's like that scene in Spider-Man where Stan Lee has the headphones on and the stuff's going on in the background.
Okay, yeah.
That's kind of me at shows. For the most part, I don't have like any like funny stories or anything like that. It's only funny the people involved. Like before RWR Reloaded, me and Scott went on a run to a hardware store because Kiefer said he wanted to use a door in his match. Like, go to this. There's a resupply store up the road. They sell doors. Go get us a door. So we're walking through this store trying to find like anything we can use because we can't seem to find the door section. And so Scott is very blunt whenever he's dealing with people. So he walks up to this poor, unassuming hardware store employee. He's like, "Hey, do y'all have any hollow doors?" He's like, "Yeah, I think we have some. Why?" He's like, "Oh, we need to throw someone through it." Like, just like, and I don't think like he didn't preface it by this is for a wrestling show.
Yeah.
It was just we need to throw someone through a door, so it needs to be hollow. And then after he saw the look on the guy's face, he's like, "Oh yeah, we run a wrestling show." Like he had to provide the context after the fact.
That's right. Oh man, yeah, because I did a little thing for 1CW where I was security or whatever, and I was running to the back and stuff. Yeah, man, seeing crazy stuff, man. It's you're going back there. It's like, oh man, you're on the podcast, and I'm seeing you naked or whatever. Oh man, changing. Oh man, it's like, man, I'm about to go get the fire department. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh man, you're bent over. I thought a goat had wandered into here. It's like, oh no, it's you. Oh my bad. You know what I mean? You're just bent over, man. Oh my bad. I thought ghosts had wandered into here. Thought it was a chicken. But anyway, man, I want to say, thank you for taking time out of your day, your busy schedule, coming on, chatting with us, man. You got, Rise of the Vixens, too, May 22nd. Everybody's excited for that, man. I hope you all go out there, just tear the roof off, kick ass, and break records on the Title Match Network and all that good stuff, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Jacob, I gotta say, thank you very much for actually, taking time out of your busy schedule to be on our show. We really and truly do appreciate it. I know Kathy was very excited. She's smiling ear to ear. So we really and truly wish you all the best with Rise of the Vixens 2 coming up. I know it's gonna blow the roof off the place and all that. It's gonna be a show to remember. I wish I could be there. But unfortunately, I'm all the way over in North Carolina, so maybe one day I'll definitely try. I'll definitely get a show for you guys. I've been in Houston for one night before, so it's in Houston, right?
Yeah, it's in Houston.
Yeah, I've been in Houston. I've been in Houston for like one night, but I definitely got to do a whole weekend there one day. Before we let you go, where can fans find you on social media if they want to find out whenever the next ROWR shows are? If they want to purchase merch, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me personally. My Instagram and Twitter is at Jacob King HTX. You can find me Instagram, Twitter. I do a lot of stuff there. Very interactive there. If you want to find RWR's main page, it's at RWR Pro Wrestling on both Instagram and Twitter. That's where we post most of the match graphics. We'll put cards up. You can get links to tickets there. If we run promotions, last week in celebration of Rachel Rose being on AEW, we had a promotion where we're doing 20% off tickets. Occasionally, if we have an occasion where we think we can do a promotion like that, we will, and you'll find out about it first on Instagram or Twitter. You can search for us on Facebook. I'm not exactly sure what the dedicated URL for that is. If you just search Renegade Wrestling Revolution on Facebook, it'll come up. You'll see Rachel's face right there in the profile image because she's the face of our company. You can look for Jacob King, just put multimedia personality next to the name, because my fan page is for it's for all aspects of my long ongoing career. It was up whenever I had a podcast. It was up whenever I did photography. It's up for what I'm doing now. So you can find me on there. I'm not as active on Facebook as I am on Twitter and Instagram, though. I'm always over on Twitter and Instagram just because that's where the majority of the banter happens.
Awesome. So with that being said, we're about to close the show right now. It's that time. So with that being said, Kathy, we're on social media. Social media. Can fans find you if they want to, talk wrestling, if they want to be on the show? Where can wrestlers and promoters and referees and everybody else find you on social media?
So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, and Twitch, all at BLUE70517.
Awesome. She's everywhere. Rob, where are you on social media? If, fans want to, talk wrestling, see you do security guard thing at 1CW again. Where can wrestlers and promoters find you as well if they want to be on our shows too?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rob_Base82. I'm on Facebook, Rob Base, YouTube Rob Base, Xbox Rob Base82, all that good stuff.
He's starting to be everywhere too.
Yeah. I'm trying to be like Cassie. I'm trying to be, next thing you know, I'm going to be in the bushes or trees outside people's houses.
If any of y'all come out of my closet, if any of y'all are hiding in my closet, y'all better have a whopper on y'all.
Oh, no, I
I'll be
ain't
very
doing
upset.
that.
But if you want to talk to me on social media, now that I have anything interesting to say, you can find me on Twitter at @TheRennyBlue. Our podcast is on Twitter at Ringside Society. Our podcast is also on Instagram at Ringside Society. We have a lot of cool stuff going on there. We also have a Facebook group. If you guess the name is Ringside Society, you guessed it correctly. We don't have anything to give away yet. Giveaways are coming soon. But with that being said, check out our Teespring store. We have a lot of great t-shirt designs there. Every proceed we get, and all proceeds go back into keeping Ringside Society around. It doesn't go straight to our pockets. And also, follow our YouTube channel as well. We got a lot more interviews coming on here as well. A lot more great interviews like this one right here as well. So with that being said, it is time for us to close down the show. So we just want to thank everybody that actually tuned in live. Thank you very much. To those of you that are going to listen later on, thank you in advance. And to those of you that hate us, can't stand us, really and truly wish we would just go away and take our merch with us. Well, I'm sorry you feel like that, but we're not going anywhere for a while.
They hate us because they ain't us.
And we ain't stopping. So with that being said, we here at Ringside Society are very well aware that everybody and their grandparents and their parents have a podcast. Well, we're not your grandparents' podcast. We're not your parents' podcast. Come think about it. We're not just any podcast. Kathy Knight, Rob Bass, one time for the mind, one time for the people, one time for the wrestling culture, and one time for RWR, Rise of the Vixens 2. Coming to Houston, Texas on May 22nd. Brought to you by the innovator of Intellect, Jacob King. What type of podcast are we?
All right. 3, 2, 1. We're the Wrestling Fans Podcast.
That's right. We're the Wrestling Fans Podcast. And with that being said, we will be back in a couple of minutes with our 15 minutes of fandom segment where we actually interview a fellow wrestling fan. But until then, y'all stay safe, stay healthy, be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes. We out. Peace.
See y'all. Good night. Stay classy, Delaware.
Bye.